My name is Bill Groskreutz. I am the Director of Technology here at East Central High School. I've presented this one a couple of times. I think I presented this at ECMEC last year. I presented just a couple weeks ago at EPIC or at the EPIC PD and this is basically the same presentation. I have taken out some slides because of videos that would take a little bit extra time on. So the agenda, we're going to talk about some common threats, some steps that you can take, such as password managers, passphrases, and a few extra steps. And then, hey, have I been compromised? Then maybe some extra takeaways. Some common threats that you have at schools. Link security. So phishing emails, ransomware. There's actually a topic going around right now with the tech coordinators in Minnesota where there's a law firm in Texas trying to get staff information just to advertise. And legally, they could say, yes, you have to do that. We've come up with a response to them saying, well, we don't have to email it to you. We will send it to you paper format. It'll cost 25 cents per page, and we expect payment up front. And that usually stops them. Unknown devices on your network. Out-of-date technology. That's a big one. Error, user error. Staff and student awareness is a big key there. School, we make backups of our stuff. That's a big thing. And then password security. And we'll talk about some of these things as we go along. So password management. What we're told is don't reuse your password. How many of us reuse passwords all the time? I'm guilty. I reuse passwords here at school a lot because it's easier, it's quick. I know what I'm doing. I don't want to have to sit there and try to remember multiple passwords, especially when I'm going around and having to do it on different computers. We're told it has to be a complicated password. Yes and no. It should be long. Yes, the longer the password, the harder it is to crack. Don't write it down. I don't know how many teachers I've gone to and they've got a post-it note with their password sitting right on their computer screen or underneath their keyboard, or I pull the top drawer of their desk, or they pull out their notebook and they say, here you go. It's all in this notebook. And you have to remember. Actually, most of my home passwords, I don't remember. I have no clue what my password is to log into my banking information, but I'm in there at least once a week because I use a password manager, and we'll talk about those. And then you cannot socially engineer them. So all those fun things you do on Facebook. It's like, hey, what color am I? Or what Greek god am I? Or whatever, those things. Those are actually social engineering people to get their passwords. The keys that people use to remember their passwords or verify that it's them. So don't use your kids' names, pets, etc. Passwords are like a toothbrush, right? Choose a good one, never share it, and you need to change it occasionally. How you want to make passwords work for you, all right? What we've said in the past is wrong, right? Hey, make it super complicated. Instead, now we're saying use passphrases, which a passphrase is 4 words. You could say elephant, mouse, eagle, wildcat. That would be a password. Hard to socially engineer. You could just be, hey, 4 favorite animals or something like that, and something you can remember. And it's great for people that are kind of leery about using password manager. I personally use a password manager at home, and then at school I have a different one. If you're primarily on shared devices, so my laptop here, I'm the only one that uses this. My personal laptop, I'm the only one that uses that. Chromebooks here at school, well, they do get passed around. If you're in a lab situation, obviously don't save your passwords on there. So passphrases are good for that. Use a password manager, and I'll talk about password managers as we move on. Password managers are great for those who can't remember what they had for breakfast this morning. And, if you forgot what you had for breakfast this morning, it's only within the last hour, so hopefully you haven't forgotten that, if you had breakfast even. And here's the best thing. You can use both. Passphrases work great in password managers. So what is a passphrase? I kind of hinted at it already, but it's similar to passwords, but they're longer. They're easier to remember and harder to crack if you do them properly. What's a good passphrase? Something that's unique. Don't use quotes. Use spaces. That throws off hackers a lot if you have a space in your password. There are places that do not allow spaces, though. Mix it up. So, a lot of times, for me, if I have the letter O, I won't use O. I'll use a 0. If I have the letter A, I'll use a 4 instead. Used to some common replacements. The letter I, I'll use the exclamation point. This is a great website called usepassphrase.com. And I'm going to switch to that tab so you can see it. Just 4 random words. And it's like, oh, I want to create a new one. Boom. And hopefully it's not something that's too hard to remember. The other one was the haystack one, and I'm going to switch to that tab. And you can actually type in a password there, such as that elephants, eagles, wildcats, say bombers, because it's giving me some information there, saying, hey, I've got 4 uppercase letters, I've got 26 lowercase, I've got 3 symbols being those spaces. How long is it going to take to crack it? They're talking 15,000 trillion centuries to crack that password. Could it be socially engineered? Possibly. Let's say I want to change something. I'm going to say change that A right there to a 4. That makes it even harder to crack. I changed this O to a 0. It didn't change the cracking time because there's a little bit on there. Let's say I changed this to an @ symbol. So I'm adding more complexity into it. So song lyrics. For my password manager, I actually do use a song lyric and I change a couple of words in it to something else. So I remember the song lyric and I remember that I changed the words. It's about 30 some characters long as a password. Sometimes, like I said, the passphrase, 4 words that have meaning to you, but they're harder to social engineer. Letter replacement, and I showed you some examples on that. Here's another one. Security is good. Security obviously is spelled wrong. Is spelled wrong, and good has got 2 zeros instead of O's. And they're saying approximate crack time there to be 21 million centuries. And on the haystack site, this is the information that they had on there, saying 1.4 million centuries to crack in a massive crack situation. An online one, 14 million trillion centuries. So it's harder to crack these passwords. So password manager. Does anyone here use a password manager currently? I mean, I know Jeremy does. They have LastPass at ECMEC, and I use LastPass at home. Here at school, I'm actually using KeyPass, mainly because the tech coordinator before me used that. So it's a tool to store and generate unique and complex passwords. Some features may include mobile access. With LastPass, they actually changed it last year. You used to be able to have it free on multiple devices. Then they changed where if you want to use it on both a laptop and a computer, you have to pay for it. I chose to pay for it because I didn't want to have a password that I have to go into my computer to look up, or I have to have my phone with me all the time to look up. So LastPass does have mobile access, and it is a cloud installation. So I actually have an extension on Chrome that uses that. Two-factor authentication. A lot of people use two-factor authentication. I personally use two-factor authentication on all of my social media accounts. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, because that's actually part of Facebook, Snapchat, they all have two-factor authentication. My banking, my cell phone accounts, my email accounts, you can go on and on. My insurance, everything has two-factor authentication because it's harder for people to break into two-factor authentication. I also get a password strength report. A few weeks ago, I was looking at my password strength report on LastPass, and because, like you, I used to reuse passwords, I was down at 35% for the password strength report. I am happy to say that as of last night, I was at 85% as a strength report after going through and changing almost 100 passwords. Secure sharing tools. I know ECMEC has a group purchase for LastPass for just those staff members there. And there's an account that can control it all. And then each user gets their own account, and then they can share passwords between them. I know I can, on my personal LastPass, I can say, oh, if I end up in the hospital for a long time or die or anything possibly like that, I can have it set to share to somebody else so they can get into my accounts and shut things down for me. They have the ability to fill in forms. That's awesome. I can't talk enough about using a password manager, because when I go to the site, I just click on, oh yeah, have the LastPass fill it in. And they also generate passwords. Most of my passwords are 16 to 25 characters long, completely random string. I have no idea what they are, but they have numbers, letters, capital letters, symbols, all included in them, and it gives me a nice password, and it's fairly strong. Plus, unique passwords for all sites. And that's why my password strength was so low initially, is because I had different passwords all over the place, or the same password all over the place. Now I have different ones. Are they secure? Yes, they can be hacked. However, they're encrypted, so it's very, very difficult to pull anything out of it. But weak passwords, they're more risky. In the videos that I actually took out of this presentation, they actually were on the street asking people, "Hey, what's your password?" And people were like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you my password." And then say, "Well, what might it be?" And then they say, "Well, it's like my grandmother's name and my cat's, birthday or something like that." And then they ask questions and eventually got the information out of them, and then saying, "Hey, your password's this." "Oh, wow, you know my password." So weak passwords are not good. Things you can do to improve your security on that is keep the manager's software up to date. Okay, keeping your software up to date is highly important. I even keep my Chrome up to date. I updated Chrome yesterday, and I'm now on Chrome 98. Use two-factor authentication. It's huge to use two-factor authentication. Insurance companies are going after schools that don't use two-factor authentication now. So lock any device when you're away from it. I know for myself, I have my screensaver set to be 2 minutes, and as soon as it turns on, then I have to log back in. When I walk out of my office, I try to remember. I don't always do it, but I try to remember to go the Windows key plus L, and that automatically locks my screen. But if I don't get back within 2 minutes, then it will automatically lock for me. Use a very strong master password. So that password manager, I've got a very strong password on it. It's very hard to crack. Everything inside of it, not necessarily strong, but there are some strong, most of them are strong. And don't use master password reminders. This is something you're going to have to remember. I don't have mine written down. No one knows what it is. It's hard to remember. It's not hard for me to remember, but it'd be hard for someone else to figure out. And then don't enable features that would remember a master password. In Chrome, Google will ask you, "Hey, do you want to remember this password?" For that master password, don't have it remember it. Every once in a while on my phone, I have to retype it in. And then look into other options that are specific to the product. In LastPass, you can put in banking information, you can put in credit card information, and it'll keep that secure as well. Where do I find a password manager? Well, PC Magazine has a list of free password managers. There's a bit.ly link to it, and I will share this presentation out, and it'll be on the resources at ECMEC. CNET has also a list. Not all of them are free. You could also just do a Google search on those. Some that people use, LastPass, KeyPassX is what I use here at school. Dashlane, OneID, RoboForm, Sticky Password. I haven't done many of those. Okay, what else can I do? Two-step verification. I'm sure that some of you have already been told you have to do it. You can, through Google anyway, you can get text message. You can use authenticator apps. You can use backup codes. You can use a Google prompt. That's typically what I do on my phone. You can also get a physical device that looks kind of like a flash drive called a YubiKey, which you can just plug into the USB port, and that will verify your identity for you as well. I know I've got a couple different authentication apps on my phone. I had to use one for the firewall and for my VPN to get into school, and now I use it for PayPal as well. I can also add Google into that if I want. This has to be enabled by your Google administrator for school domains for you to be able to use it. I don't know which Google administrator would not enable that. I think all of us in ECMEC have that enabled already. Personal accounts, you can do that on your own. I have my personal Gmail set up to be two-factor authentication. And then there's just the link that you can use to set that up. And as of October 1st this last year, I required all staff members at Essential to do this. In fact, one of our administrators waited until the last day to do it because they didn't want to. Don't share personally identifying information publicly, especially those password potential questions. Hey, what are these questions just to verify? Hey, what's your favorite job? What do you want to do? What's your ideal job? Or what's your mother's maiden name? What's your pet's name? What city were you born in? Those things can be socially engineered or looked up. How do I know that I've been compromised? Well, if notified, be cautious because it could be a hacker saying, "Hey, we've seen that you've been, exposed, compromised. Someone else is using your information." Be cautious on that. Go to this site, haveibeenpwned.com, and notice it's PWNED. And yes, if you go to that, more likely you've been pwned. I know my school address has been hit multiple times. Thankfully, I have nothing financially on that. My personal one has as well. Most of the time, it's because of like credit card breaches at various places, Target, Walmart, all the major companies that have had credit or the breaches, security breaches. You can enter your email address in there, and you can see if you've been included on any breach sites. Check your credit reports. How many people check their credit reports regularly? I kind of do. I won't say that I have. So there's places you can go. You can go to the annualcreditreport.com, and it's free every 12 months for each of the three major agencies. What I would suggest is do it every 4 months. Say, hey, Equifax, I'm going to do it in January. 4 months later, do Experian, and 4 months later, do TransUnion. Back to January, do Equifax. So you're actually checking it 3 times a year through the three different agencies. But you kind of say, hey, I'm doing it more often than just once a year. If you want to do it diligent, like I said, do it every 4 months. Did you know you can also freeze your credit? I just found this out last week from Nicole. If you go to Equifax and Experian and TransUnion, you can actually go and freeze your credit. And you just have to log in, verify yourself with a few different questions, and go from there. You can also do this for your children that are under 18. There are different links. I do not have those included in there, but if you ask Jeremy, I'm sure he can get those from Nicole, because Nicole is the one that gave me these. And then also go to identitytheft.gov. If you suspect that you've had your identity stolen, definitely that's the first place to start. All right, some extra takeaways for you. Never give your password out over the phone. All right. I've been watching a YouTuber called Jim Browning, and he is actually the CEO at TeamViewer. And for some tech people that know TeamViewer, it's a piece of software where you can go and log into somebody's computer remotely and control it for them, but you have to give them a password. Well, he actually reverse engineered it because he's the CEO, and he actually goes after hackers that are in India and pulls up stuff on their computer while they're working on one of his. He's really interesting to watch. To call them back, actually. Don't have them call you. Get their phone number and call them. Make sure we're talking about length of the password, not the complexity, because the longer it is, the harder it's going to be for them to crack. Check domain names. We have the one that with the lawyer firm that was going around. It was Dorman-Bell, where the law firm is actually dormanbell.com. So watch those specific things. Sometimes they'll just drop a letter here and there in their domain name, and you think it's a legit place. Don't use seasons or years. So don't add on, hey, I was born in 1977, or I was born in 1963. I'm going to add that onto my password. Don't say, hey, my password this year for Synergy is school. Well, let's see, this is 21 or 2021 or 2022. You want to make sure that they're complex. Don't reuse passwords. I know it's really, really hard. Everyone has a password, their favorite password they like to use. Once that password is hacked, potentially cracked for every site that you go to. Use a password manager. I can't stress that enough. Password managers are a wonderful thing to use. I use it all the time on my phone and on my laptop. All my passwords are on both places. Use multi-factor verification. So getting that text message or using an authenticator app to force you to have that extra layer of security. And just security awareness. Google has this security awareness course called Be Internet Awesome. It's a gamified approach, and it is made for students. But even if it's made for students, it's good for you as well. Know what your kids are doing. There's a company out there called Common Sense Media, and they have an entire curriculum on digital citizenship and computer safety, internet safety. They also go and rate movies and books on this site for age appropriateness. I think they also do video games. You can access or assess your personal security. You can get an S2 Me score. Each school in ECMEC has actually done an S2 score Nicole comes around yearly and quizzes, the tech people and the district staff on what are we doing for security. And we get a score similar to a credit score. You can do this for yourself. You can do it for your kids. Just go to it's s2me.org if I remember correctly. No, s2me.io. It looks like this. So you can go and create an account and assess your security awareness or your personal security. Work with your district technology people. As you look around, I know Mark Johnson down in Chisago Lakes is one of their tech integrationists. Go and talk to him. He is a great guy to get some resources from. Talk to your people in your school. And Mark's waving, yep. I've also made a course in Schoology and Google Classroom for our staff here at East Central. You should be able to access that as well if you want. And I have course codes for both of those. And this will also be on the resource page inside of that. If you go into the course for Schoology or Google Classroom, either one, it's the same exact course, just different formats because of the different platforms. At the end of that, it has a little form to fill out if you want to get a CEU credit. So you can earn a CEU for it. It's an automatic. Okay, credits that I have for you guys. Much of the information here was provided by Nicole at ACMEC. She's the network administrator. Mark Johnson, who is our executive director at ACMEC. Ryan Cloutier, for those of you who have not heard who this guy is, he is very, very smart individual. He's the president of Security Studio. He's the principal security architect for this Consortium for School Networking, which is a national organization. He's a certified white hat, which means that he is a certified hacker that goes after the bad hackers. And he lives here in Minnesota. Evan Franson, who is the CEO of FR Secure and Security Studio. He's also another wonderful guy. And he's a certified white hat as well. But now I'm going to thank you for attending, and I hope that you have a great Thursday.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Yep, you're welcome. Hope everyone has a great day.